Hey friends, got another wet day of karting at VIMC for you. And unlike the last one, this time it definitely did not dry out. So this is what ended up being my qualifying lap. No draft unfortunately, but it turns out that was actually a good thing. The next lap I did have a bit of a draft. As you can see, I'm kind of gaining on this kart ahead of me. But it turned out that once I got too close, his spray was getting too much water into my air filter, even with the cover I've got on it. And halfway through the lap, my engine just bogged down. So fortunately, no permanent damage from that. At least I don't think so. But that was it for qualifying. So this is the lap. Generally, it felt pretty good. For whatever reason, I tend to find it easier to stay on the pace in the wet in this kart. It just, the setup, for whatever reason, favors it, and or maybe my driving style does. So yeah, I think I was within a second or so of the leader's pace for my the lap that counted here, and actually the one that was going faster than this until the engine bogged, I was even closer. So felt like my chances were pretty good for the race coming up. And it turned out first place got disqualified for a technical issue, so I actually ended up starting second, which you'd think would be good, but I honestly prefer starting third because you can generally just follow the leader on the inside through the first corner, whereas it's tough for second place to get in there, as you'll see coming up in just a second here. My start was fine, but for whatever reason I'm not getting any pushes from behind, and you can see the karts over on the right are in a nice little train there, all pushing each other. So two went through, and actually fifth place here sneaks through on the inside of me as well. So that was not a fun start at all, but that's okay. It's a long race. You can just be patient here, stick behind him, get the draft, give him some pushes, and hopefully not go out too ridiculously wide on the corner there. Okay, let's try not to lose another one here. Okay, this is more like it. The line wasn't great, but I kept the momentum up. And maybe we won't stick behind him. We'll make up a place instead. Probably. Yeah, we got this. And now I just gotta try and keep it relatively clean and see if I can chase down these next two. That went pretty well. I've definitely got the pace now. Unfortunately, I don't realize it at the time, but things are going to take a turn here as I go over the seam for this corner right there. So I didn't feel it right away, but I'm pretty sure that that is when I broke the chassis bar that connects to the seat on the left-hand side. So I started feeling over the course of this lap, and more so throughout the rest of the race, the seat just feeling weird and loose. And actually what I thought had happened is that on the right side of my seat, there's actually a second hole near the hole that I'm actually using to mount the seat. And they're really close together, and what had happened in a previous race is that the space between them had broken and they basically joined together. And we repaired that before, well, we didn't repair it. Foster had it repaired for me. But anyway, it got fixed before this race. I thought that had broken back open, which would have meant that the seat was loose but still fully attached. So I wasn't too concerned about it at first, but it was feeling quite disconcerting. It's not hurting my pace too much yet. I'm still right on him here. And actually, is this where... Yeah, he goes a bit wide, so I figure this is the time to take this position. A little bit tight through there, but ultimately made it happen. But yeah, for whatever reason, I don't understand how, because I think the bar would have had to break completely immediately, but for whatever reason, as the race went on, the seat just felt looser and looser. I guess it could have been that it didn't break fully through at first and then let go completely later on. Or maybe at first the other 3 mounts were relatively tight, so things were being held reasonably in place, and then loosened up over time as it flexed back and forth. I don't know. Regardless, it was definitely hurting my pace right away, and more so throughout the race, as I'm focusing more on just holding on and not putting too much force into the seat than cornering as hard as I can. Because obviously, I think I know what's going on with it, but I'm not 100% sure. And even if it is just the joined hole on the right side, obviously I don't want to put 100% force into it and potentially, rip through it further. Of course, on the other hand, I am running in second place here, and I have never won a stint thus far. And the guy's really not that far ahead of me, so I am kind of still hoping that I can keep up enough pace to maybe win this pre-final. And then it's right about here when I realize that is not going to happen, because Xylus has somehow made his way from 30th place at the back of the pack to now second place in the course of, what's it been, 3 laps? I guess I will blame my seat for not being able to stick to him as he goes by, though. So yeah, with the kart feeling not great at this point, obviously I'm not going to catch Xylus. I don't think I'm going to catch the other kart either. So really, I'm just trying to bring it home now, not break anything any further, and ideally not get passed from behind. Yeah, situations like this are always a little bit tricky. I play it safe there because I figure I can always pass him coming up into the next corner, but then a yellow flag comes out, so I have to back off, and I'm going to stay behind him, but then he just goes sightseeing over on the left there. So, I mean, it's kind of a judgment call, but I think I would have had to practically stop to let him come back over. So, I don't know. I think that move was reasonable, but let me know if you disagree. I must admit I did briefly start to hope just a little bit again here, but I just can't push around the corners. I'm just hanging on, so yeah, unlikely it's going to happen. Indeed, it did not happen, but not a bad race and not a bad finish for a broken kart. Then the trick was, what was I going to do in the very short amount of time before the final in order to make the kart halfway raceable? Somehow I neglected to throw a welding machine into my trackside toolbox, so that did cut down the options somewhat. What I ended up doing was attaching a seat brace from the left side of the seat to the rear axle, which actually did a great job of holding onto the seat. It was probably at least as strong as the chassis bar. Of course, what it also does is stiffen the axle on that side, which you really don't want in these Briggs karts, because generally you need as much axle flex as possible. But, you know, better than not being able to race, and definitely better than having your seat fall off. So let's see how it goes. Now, of course, one nice thing about finishing third in the pre-final is that I get to start third in the final, which, as I mentioned before, is much preferable to starting in second. So let's see how that goes here. I'm going to try and get a quick start and stick to Xylus for as long as I can. And certainly, you know, you see why I like starting third. There we go. Now, just got to watch out behind here, make sure nobody's diving up the inside. And alright, job done. He pulled a tiny bit of a gap on me, but I'm still in the draft so I can catch back up. Now, what I wasn't thinking about is that that brace on the left side is not really affecting me on right-hand corners, but it does affect lefts. And the kart basically just did not want to turn there, which I was not prepared for. So, yeah, now I'm not so much in the draft, and I'm having to think a little bit more about the guys behind. Or at least I should have been thinking about them. And not quite as bad here, but it turns around the right there just fine, and look at that there. I'm having to really push to get it to turn left. That unfortunately compromised the right that followed, and Mitchell immediately got on the alongside of me on the right there, so I can't take this next apex, and then he's going to be by. Oh yeah, not an ideal first lap, and I'm not feeling super confident in the kart at this point. And of course, I hadn't realized at the time there was only lefts that I was struggling with. I was just noticing that the kart was feeling unreliable, and I didn't really know what to expect. So I wasn't prepared for this, but fortunately caught it at least without ending up facing backwards. Don't think I even bothered to look behind me here. I knew he was right on me, and after that slide I was going to need to go defensive through here, which I think must have thrown him off a bit because I actually ended up with a bit of a gap. Got a bit lucky with this yellow flag, as my exit out of that last sequence was still poor, so that gap was very quickly gone. Now this time I was certainly feeling a bit nervous coming up to this corner, but I think the tires have warmed up enough now, and or the track is maybe drying slightly, so I had enough grip, I guess, to lift that inside even with the brace that time, and managed not to slide all over the place, which was a nice change. And yeah, better through there as well, so probably not going to be under fire immediately from the kart behind this lap. But it's also going to be tough to catch up to the guys ahead because they're in a train there, I think, or at least close to one, so probably we'll be helping each other out a little bit. That wasn't great that time, but I don't think I can blame the seat brace. That was just more my own poor line. And that is all the invitation that Andy behind me needs to catch back up. So this is going to get interesting again. But it looks like he wants to work together to catch up to the pack ahead, and that is definitely alright with me. That said, I'm not going to wait around, and I do appear to have a little bit of a gap here, so maybe if I can fairly efficiently get through these lapped carts ahead, I can secure this place and then worry about trying to catch up to the guys ahead. Really appreciate him checking for me there. That's always a little bit of a sketchy place to pass, but you lose so much time if you have to slow down and wait, so that was nice. So fortunately for me, but unfortunately for you as the viewer, now that I'm able to relatively competently turn left...
When all he had to do was turn left.
There's not a whole lot going on in the next few laps here. Without me making any big exciting mistakes, carts ahead are pretty far ahead, and the guy behind is a ways behind now. Yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot happening, but I also don't want to edit out half of the final. So how about if you want to see exciting things, then skip ahead to the timestamp that I'll put up here, and otherwise enjoy a few competent but straightforward laps. Alright, so here we are on the white flag lap. Andy's managed to close the gap up a little bit behind me there, and we are coming up to some traffic at a rather inopportune spot on that corner. And it looks like we're going to have to go around the outside here. I was hoping to be able to cut back for the apex here, but she takes out, so my only option is around the outside again, and managed to just sneak it through there. So that worked out okay. Didn't lose too much ground, but I did lose a little bit. But as long as we can get through this last sequence, which we do manage to do without any big slides, then that should do it. And we bring home a 4th place. I think all of about 1.5 hundredths ahead of the cart behind. So, a pretty good finish, all things considered. And that is about it for me today. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Oh, but I do need... Oh! Oh, shit! Awesome!
What happened?
My GoPro mount broke. It's just now as I tried to undo it. That's why you put the tether on it, but it would have been dragging on the ground. It would have been less than ideal.